be aware of how much line you have out and how deep they're running. Most of those Captain Mack's packages have a guide on there about how much line and your speed and all of that, and he'll talk about that tonight.
Vice Captain Mack, I've got an umbrella rig clip I want to share with you. This was shot on Lake Lanier in January, early January of 19. I got a good buddy, Dean Sigmund, Holland and Bugs, and those other things. Really nice stuff. I don't think he's reeling all the fish. So anyway, hopefully we can share some things with you that'll help you catch some fish with umbrellas. So I really think, they're good year round. If you can get your depth of the umbrella to the proper depth, they have year round application.
Those two are already down.
I think they're particularly strong in the cooler months, December, January, February. They do really, really well. In this case, we have water temperatures in the low 50s, and then we caught some nice fish. Now, this is where an umbrella, I think, is at its best. We had a huge area that had a lot of fish in it, but they were singles. They were scattered out really badly. We never could get them bunched up, because a lot of times I use the umbrella as a search tool. If I ever find the fish really ganged up, then I might switch to a live bait technique, or I might drop a fishing spin. But in this case, we beat out singles all day, and it's great. It's such a high saturation technique. If you've got fish that are scattered out, this is a great way to show them the bait. Here we'll see, looks like I'm trying to film one while Dean's catching. This is really hard to land a fish, hold your phone, get good video. We did 2 out of 3. I don't know how that video turned out, but we got the fish. Worked out pretty well. I'll see if I can find that video. The rig we're using is a Captain Mack's 4-arm 9-bait bucktail rig. The tackle is Captain Mack's umbrella rod, a cold water 30 with 40-pound monofilament. Now I want you to look how Dean's working this fish. He's pumping and reeling. There's 2 ways you can land a fish with an umbrella. You can either use a pump and reel technique like Dean's doing, which I think is easier. But it's crucial when you drop the rod, you keep the line tight. Because if you drop the rod and give him slack, the umbrella's heavy enough that it falls below the fish, pulls down on the hook, and then when you tighten it up, it lifts the rig, and it changes the position of the hook. If you do that enough, and for lack of a better term, you waller a hole out in his mouth, and that's a good way to lose a nice fish. So if you're going to pump and reel like that, drop that rod, keep it tight. If you just want to reel, a constant, steady reel, that works too. But the main thing, no matter how you do it, keep the rod in. And you'll find that you won't lose many fish. This is really, really a very high percentage technique. High percentage meaning the number of strikes and the number of fish you land. It's a very, very good ratio. And here what I'm doing, you see I got my rod tip down in the water. I wish I could tell you this is some kind of super magic technique. It's not. If you look at the fish, you might have noticed he came to the top back there. And Dean, when he came to the top, the fish is moving from our left, or left the screen to the right, he's crossing across the stern. And all I did was took my rod, dipped it down the water, to get that umbrella a little deeper until this fish crosses over. I just didn't want him to get foul. And I wanted to do that as opposed to reeling in. A lot of times I get the second fish on the other rig. In this case, the fish were scattered so badly we didn't get any double hook. Those all singles. But that's what that was all about. Hold it down there, let that fish cross over. Now he's on the top there. The other rig's deep enough. That's not going to be an issue. Dean's wailing on this one. It's taking a while. Matter of fact, I was giving him a hard time. I think we looked at the camera. He was on this fish almost 2 minutes. Yeah, I like to give him a hard time. Yeah, there we go. So he's going to get him another nice fish. Keep that line nice and tight. And trolling speed, I get this question all the time. What's the optimal speed? And if I had to pick a number, I'd pick 2.75. What you need to remember, I don't think there's a lot of difference in the number of bites you get if you're going 2.5 versus 3.5. I think the difference is that change in speed, or the greater speed changes your depth. You're going faster, you're fishing shallower. I really believe it's all about the depth. The fish can swim 3.5 to 4 miles an hour to eat your umbrella, at least for a short distance. He can swim 2.5 miles an hour to eat your umbrella. But it's not in the right depth. I think that's more of a detriment than the speed. So just factor that in. You need to think about the wind. If you're trolling, you've got a nice wind, 10 mile an hour wind at your stern, and you turn around, you go the opposite direction and put that wind on your bow, you've just changed your boat speed, which you can alter that with the motor, but just be cognizant of that, because that kind of speed change causes a big depth change. Now, landing the fish, this is the best way to land them. I just grab the frame of the umbrella. That umbrella is big and tough enough. That's the best handle, because if you net it, whatever hooks are not in the fish and into the net, it's going to take you a long time to take care of that. This way, you grab the frame, fish off the rig back in the water, catch more fish. So anyway, here's some tips on umbrella fishing. Keep them in your boat. I think it'll make you a better fisherman. Hopefully we said something here that will catch you more fish and come good fishing.
I am a small business owner trying to find other small business.
Okay.
Joe, if you were to turn those, I think it's like the middle one all the way to the right, just turn all those on. There we go. Yeah, leave these off.
All right.
There he is. Mack Farr, everybody.
Hey, Mac. How are you?
Good evening, everybody. How you doing?
So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna open it up to questions. Mack has been gracious enough to give us some time. I think you could see a little bit of what he was doing. He talked about the speed. He talked about his forearm 9-bait bucktail umbrella rig, and this is the guy, man. You got him here. You got him for 10 or 15 minutes. Let's pepper him and let's learn a lot here, guys.
How much line do you let out generally?
That's a great question. The amount of line that you deploy is directly proportional to how deep the rig runs. And I think you guys have it, but we have, all of our pre-rigged umbrellas come with a depth chart. They'll have a column that says if you're this, you have this much line out, the rig will be this deep. And it's calculated if you've got 9 jigs on it or if you've got 4. And it's pretty accurate as long as you adhere to the guidelines, and all this information is on the header card of the umbrella, and it's calculated using 40-pound monofilament at a speed of 2.5 miles an hour. If you start changing those parameters, then you'll change the depth. The biggest question I'm getting now, so many people, is the trend to use braid is really growing. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's a personal preference. Braid, because of its decreased diameter, it will distort the depth chart quite a bit. So as a general rule, if you double the line size, if you went from 40-pound mono to 80-pound braid, and you look at that depth chart, you can subtract about, or add about 20% to your depth. It's a rough equation, but you just starting point. Good question.
That's a great question.
Will you be coming out with new charts for a braid?
We probably will. We kind of let that settle out. There's so many different types of braid. It's hard to make one size fit all, but probably so, because I think more guys are using braid now for a couple reasons. And sometimes it's really advantageous to have that thinner diameter to get more depth, this time of year or in the summer. So it's also, a lot of people like it, instead of using an umbrella retriever, we definitely need to talk about that. Because it's not if you're going to get home, it's when. Particularly when you're late, and we'll address that too. But what happens with that braid, if you're at 80 or 100-pound braid, you can wrap your line around the cleat and keep going. Usually you'll either tear the obstruction out of the water, break the top off the tree, a hook will bend out, but it's so stout. Usually you'll get your umbrella back and you won't have to stop and go back and use a retriever, which is effective, very effective, but it's also time consuming. But yeah, we'll probably be developing that because there's too many people going that route.
How sensitive are your charts for the lead weight of the jigs? Because I guess as you
They're pretty accurate. But
but
again, if you took a rig and you took the 3/4 ounce jigs off and put 1/2 ounce jigs on there, you just that's a pretty dramatic decrease in weight. So you're talking again about a 15 to 20% change in depth probably. As a general rule, an ounce equates to a couple of feet. That's a rough equation, but that will give you an idea if you add or subtract. There's also a trend, a lot of guys are going towards, to get deeper, they're putting a really big jig in the middle of the umbrella, or maybe putting in an egg sinker in front of the umbrella. And both are effective. Just remember, if you go the route, like you put a 2-ounce egg sinker in front of your umbrella, remember to peg it with a toothpick, because if you get the rig hung, the sinker separates from it, and if the sinker gets in the tree, when you use your retriever, the retriever will go to the egg sinker, you'll never get it back to the rig.
Do you vary the size of your bait on them? I know run some big baits on the long and smallers on the other.
Yes, I do. I do change the appearance and look at the umbrella a lot, but mostly I do that almost solely with plastics. If you wanna create a bigger profile, you can switch from, we put a 6-inch twister tail on it, which is very effective and probably covers more situations than any one bait you could use. And I know that can get feedback from guys all over the country. But if you wanted to change the profile, give it a different look, if you changed the bait in the middle to say a 6-inch shad body for a trailer, or maybe if you want to give it a whole different look, pick 4 of the trailers and change them from something light to something dark. And say you're fishing and it's really bright and it gets cloudy, put a pink or a blue trailer on there. And you can test the water without spending a lot of time and money. But you can change the bait with your trailer, or change the look of the entire umbrella with your trailer probably as effectively as you can by changing the look.
Is a bucktail jig more effective?
I think most times, yes. The exceptions to that, when it's really cold, like here, we never got that cold this winter, knock on wood, I hope we don't. But if the water gets down to the 40s, a lot of times the shad bodies seem to do better. Or if you're on a lake that has a lot of hybrids, I think that shad body will be as good or possibly better than bucktail. But as a general rule, and again, taking feedback from anglers all over the country, bucktail's hard to beat. And we chose that color bucktail because it seems to be effective in clear water or stained water. And again, I can change the color with the trailer. But that's kind of a one-size-fits-all that's effective.
You put a hook in every bait?
We do, it depends on the state. Here in Georgia, all our rigs come with a hook in every bait, yes. Now, if you're in Tennessee, and I don't know about Virginia, Tennessee has a 3-hook law, and it varies from state to state. I think California is 1 or 2. Now, you could take a rig and take that jig off and replace it with a teaser, if you will. The reason we don't offer that is if it's something lighter, and you take the weight out of the rig, it's really hard to get it deep. So I think you're better off. And for me to produce a teaser and put it on there, a leadhead, a bucktail without a hook basically, the cost is the same. The labor doesn't change, the cost of the hook changes, but not enough to move the needle. So you're better off to cut the hook off based on where you are to get the appropriate number. You guys don't have that limitation in Virginia, do you?
No.
Hey, Matt, can you talk about your rod and reel setup?
Sure, but an umbrella's a pretty specialized piece of equipment, so I think you need to match your tackle to it. And for years, I've never really found an umbrella rod that I like. I found lots of rods that I like a quality or a couple qualities of. So we kind of took all that and designed an umbrella rod. It's produced for us by Okuma, and that would be my favorite. A lot of downrigger rods are functional. I do think you need a rod, if you think in terms of crankbait fishermen and you're using a cranking rod, it's got kind of a fast tip, because I want the fish to load up on it, really get it before the rod takes it away from it. If you will, I want a fast enough tip that's going to spoon pinion a little bit. And then when we get past that tip, you've got enough guts in the rod to stick the hook and handle the fish once we're hooking. So that's what I would look for. And a lot of the downrigger rods will serve that function pretty well, particularly a downrigger rod with a little bit heavier action, maybe instead of a lightweight downrigger rod, medium heavy.
How long are your rods?
Reel, I prefer a 30 series reel, mainly because, umbrella fishing, you're gonna have heavy line. The leaders on the umbrella, our umbrellas are 45-pound test. We found if we went any lighter than that, you get double hookups, which will happen to you, I promise you, at some point. But if you go lighter than that, then you break it at the leader, because there's no give. That's a 6-inch leader. There's no stretch. There's no give at all. So now that we've got a 45-pound leader, which I think is about as light as you can go, if our line's lighter than that, that becomes a little thing. Then you're gonna lose your fish in your umbrella. You're gonna be mad at me for a long time. That can happen, right? So we're gonna go with 40 or 50-pound mono, but that's gonna necessitate a 30 series reel. I like the cold water 30s. That's an excellent all-around reel. The Shimano line counters, excellent reels, a little pricier, but they are very good reels. So, but think in terms, if you're gonna use mono, you got a 30 series reel. If you're using braid, you can drop down a little bit. Maybe even a 20-size series reel like you're bait fishing with. That depending on the rod, some of those rods or reels don't pair with the bigger rods. Some things to think about, but I think the 30s is a pretty good all-around fit for that.
What about leg coil line?
Good question. What about leg core? Absolutely, leg core is incredibly effective. Again, if you're in a situation where you need to get that extra depth, that's how you do it. And you can really pull one down with that. The only thing that I would be concerned about or that you need to be aware of most striper guys probably gravitate to 27-pound lead core. But remember, with a 40-pound leader, now that becomes the weakest link again, so I would bump up to 36. If you're using a 30 series reel, shouldn't be any problem with capacity. We do that a lot here in the summer, and along those same lines, you can always put it on downriggers. Downriggers, you know, I don't know a better way to get deep and have the precision. That's the key to the downrigger. It gets you deep, no limitations, but you know exactly how deep you are. And that's why we made the lighter rigs, the three-arm 7-bait rig or 4-bait rig, goes really well behind the downrigger because of the decreased drag. And you take that warm arm out of there, it really dramatically decreases drag, which you can hold your umbrella foot or your downrigger foot better. That's the biggest purpose of that rig. But yeah, lead core is very effective, no question.
How does that affect the depth? You were talking about braided versus monofilament, the lead core, how does that affect the depth?
Lead core increases the depth, and again, we don't have a chart because there's so many parameters here. I've not been able to make a one-size-fits-all. I normally use tough line. I think that's a really good lead core, but even though it's decreased diameter, it's gonna pull it down. It's gonna probably it's gonna double your depth chart at least. Braid's gonna double it, maybe not double it, but add 20%. Because even if it's braid and it's thinner, you're still gonna probably bump up to 80-pound braid. So figure 20%. All of them are effective, but that's the key. You change your depth every time you change from mono to one of those lines.
Any other questions, guys?
Am I making this up, or is there an apparatus you can put on the tip of the rod that will measure the angle of the water, the line going into the water, and then through a mathematical equation, you know how much line you let out, you know how deep you are?
Yeah, there are a couple products made commercially that help you gauge depth. I've not used them. Because I've trolled a lot, I'm pretty comfortable where my depth is. But there are some things that will do that. And I think if you look online, I don't remember the product, but there's some things that have calculated depth charts for if you are using X amount of weight with X amount of line, it will calculate your depth factor for you.
Yeah, I got it from Bass Pro years ago, there is one. It measures the angle and tells you how much line out roughly. There's something like that.
Yeah, and I think they're fairly accurate. You know, again, it gets you in the ballpark. Of course, you guys have the challenge there with your timber line being, correct me if I'm wrong, around 20 feet at full pull, correct?
Trust me, it is.
Okay. So,
Love rigs.
yeah, you don't have a lot of wiggle room in there. You know, Lanier has a similar setup. We're full of timber, but Core was thinking about umbrella fishing because they chopped our trees off at 40 feet.
Very thoughtful.
I got a pretty big, I got a nice cushion there in the lakes though. So you guys' precision is gonna be important. One thing you can do, and with our photography that's available to us now, you can get on channels, which is particularly effective in the summer, because when I look for fish in the summer, I look over a creek channel or over the river channel. I'm satisfied they use them a very loose orientation, but I think they use them like a road, if you will. So that's where I do a lot of my searching anyway. If you really lock in on that, I use Lake Master charts, which give me the ability to mark things, and highlight things, and of course you can record your trail. Then you can get out in channels and you don't have to worry about that as much. There's probably a lot of times, I'm guessing, that your fish would really pile up on some of those timber lines, either on the edge of the timber or on top of the timber. And that's if they're scattered out and that stuff, a rig's gonna be a really good way to catch them. You know, I don't want you to be intimidated by, I'm gonna get it home. You're gonna get it home. I do it all the time. I throw them all the time. Sometimes I find, like in the spring, we do something called flipping points. When we go over points, you try to have a creek, go over every point. Where I'm trying to pull my rig 15 feet over an 18-foot bottom. I don't have a lot of wiggle room there. If somebody's planting the brush pile, or I just stop paying attention for a minute or whatever, if I get that one variation of a couple feet left or right, then I'm on the bottom. We make an umbrella retriever. We've got plenty of video on YouTube. If you look at it, learn how to use it. It will get your rig back a remarkably high percentage of the time. The keys to that are, to make it work, you gotta back up. Okay, so let's say we're trolling, and we hang one rig up, we reel the other one in. We don't turn around and go around to the rig, 'cause if you do that, if you circle around, you run the risk of allowing the line to wrap around whatever you hunt. So leave it in the rod holder, or if there's two of you, pick it up, but keep it tight. You don't wanna get it slack, because again, now you're allowing the rig to settle down into whatever it's in, and you're allowing the line to leave. And that's the worst thing. Because if the line's strung out from the rig left to right over a limb, and you drop the retriever, you can't move the retriever on the horizontal plane to get the rig. So keep it tight, back the boat up, get it right on top of it, where your line is as close as possible, straight up and down. Attach the retriever to your line and let it slide down to the rig. And it's not a plug knocker like a bass fisherman uses. This is a 12-ounce chunk of lead with a big old treble hook on it. And it will actually grab the frame of the rig, and you're gonna put a 3/16" piece of rope on it, and it's gonna grab your rig, you're gonna grab it, pull it off, and you may lose the jig, maybe two, but that's way better than losing the rig. And once you want to use it, it gets the rig back. And the rig's tough enough, you may have to tweak it and work it out and get it straightened back out, but it can handle that. So when you factor that in, they're really pretty economically effective. Because I don't want you getting intimidated. Yeah, with two of those on patrol, 100 yards, you lose both of them, because that can happen if you don't have a retriever. That fixes that. Learn to use it, and you'll be amazed how few of them do.
Mac, I found the best technique is before you put that first rig in the water, just go ahead and throw a $20 bill in the lake. Then you put the rigs out.
I've not heard that before, so that's what we can do.
All
Matt,
right.
I can tell you from a group here, I've learned a lot tonight, and I hope everybody else has. And from the group, we want to tell you how much we appreciate your time. And if it's all right by you, we're going to put a link to Captain Mack's website on our site, so that folks, if they're interested in ordering, they can come direct to you. The invitation will be open to you to come up anytime that you'd like, to speak to the group, to fish, whatever. We appreciate your time. Thank you.
All right.
Good fishing, and if we can help you anything else, let us know, and hopefully we'll see you next spring.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you.